What's going on, everyone? You're listening to the My Aggie Nation podcast. I'm Alex Miller with the Eagle up here. That's Travis Brown and Robert Cessna. They're not here because they're in Atlanta for SEC Media Days. They have endured the marathon grind that is the preseason interview, scramble session, whatever the heck you want to call it. Guys, I hear it's raining over in Atlanta. What is that like?
I don't know. There's just like liquid falling from the sky. We couldn't necessarily get over to here without like a car. It was crazy. What was going on out there?
I saw Jimbo getting buckets of water to take back for his cows. So I thought that was pretty amazing.
Shout out to Max Crawford for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, day 4 of SEC Media Days, Texas A&M took center stage today. Jimbo Fisher, of course, coach of A&M, joined with Damani Richardson and Layden Robinson. Guys, what was the biggest storyline that came out of A&M's media appearance at Media Days today?
Yeah, I'll go and jump on this one. I think for me personally, we just are about to get a story up on a little scheduling conversation that Jimbo had. I asked him, what would be the top 3 permanent opponents he'd like to see if they went to that scheduling model. It took Kurt Bowles kind of asking the question again for him to kind of nail it down. But he said, of course, it'd be Texas and LSU. He said he'd like to see Arkansas, but kind of gave us a little insight on what happened when they had some conversations in Destin at SEC meetings, and said when they we're testing some things out and having conversations, it was Mississippi State that was tied to the Aggies in those 3 permanent opponents. Should they go to that 3-6 model, or 3-8 model, excuse me. 3-6 model, you're right, yeah. Which would be 3 permanent opponents, 6 rotating opponents every year. So I found that pretty interesting, that it could be the Bulldogs that you'd see, even though the most natural, I would think, rivalries would be A&M, LSU, Texas, and Arkansas.
Well, obviously, it's still tentative because when Commissioner Sankey gave his straight address, they don't know if it's going to be 8 games, 9 games. They're waiting to see what happens. And then also, when you stop and consider, if you go back during spring, the meetings in Destin, it was very fluid. And one of the deals was everybody would send in their 3. And of course, immediately for that model, there was some compromises because obviously you're not going to give every team the 3 teams they wanted because it wouldn't work. Some teams would put in maybe the same. Alabama, in other words, Alabama might appear on 5 teams as best of 3. It ain't going to happen. So,
or none.
None, exactly. So I think the key is most people would think that A&M would get those 3. And then I guess the key is which one don't you get? It could have been Mississippi State instead of LSU, for example. And it still could be. We don't know how that's all going to play out. It's give and take. But I think, once again, is everybody's always worried about schedules. And what I had to laugh about that is I think Brian Herson of Auburn, Texas and OU had not come in until 25. And he said, we might want to wait until then because I think he referred to could it be an 18-team conference or a 20-team conference. The way it happens, you don't know about anything. But anytime anybody gets a bit of quote news, you want to jump on it. And Jimbo's, and all coaches are really notorious for, they forget what they talked about, what is fact and what is possible fact. And the fact that they could be playing those 3 teams is a possible fact.
The other thing to mention, too, is Greg Sankey, when he had his opening comments, said the things that they're really focused in on watching is how the format and size of the college football playoff might shake out here in the next couple of years with that 2024 deadline to re-up that contract. And then also a little bit more on conference realignment and tiebreakers. Because the thing that I think really hung them up in Destin was how they would work tiebreakers. It's something new and different. They're still having to do a little bit of research into that.
Yeah, good point, Travis, because let's be honest, if A&M, you take the schedule they have, if they have Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas every year, and I don't want to belittle Mike Leach at Mississippi State, but you think Arkansas is a little bit ahead right now. You have to play those 3 and 6 more. and then try to get into the college football playoff? Is it going to be 8 teams, 12 teams? And that's why Commissioner Sankey said, let's just hold on, because the SEC is going to do whatever it can to get the most teams in the college football playoff, whether it's playing 8 games, 9 games, whether it's playing a 3-6 schedule, a 4-4 or whatever. Who knows? They're going to do whatever it takes.
A 4-2-5.
We're starting to sound like defensive coordinator, but there was other things except besides scheduling. And I think thing that comes out to me was obviously brought up the Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher comments, the war awards, so to speak, on NIL. And I thought was funny. I thought was interesting is Jimbo said great respect for Saban, his time there. So they've changed a little bit. Both coaches are trying to put that under the rug, I feel, behind as much as possible. We all know it's going to surface again on October 8th. So let's put it underneath the rug and move on. But it's always going to be there. Those guys had their say at each other, and we're always going to bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, were you surprised that there were so many Saban questions asked to Jimbo? I mean, it seemed like there were at least 4 or 5 before there was even anything else. I think, Travis, you might have been the first person who didn't ask him a Saban question there on that main floor.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all knew it was coming. That was the biggest splash of the talking season, was this little kerfuffle between the two of them. I think we knew that it was going to be a lot of questions like that. It was interesting, though. There was less questions about it to Nick Saban than there was to Jimbo Fisher. But then Jimbo Fisher also had the stronger reaction of the two.
Yeah, and you're right, because you also got to consider is some of these guys, media, myself and Travis included, we weren't at SEC spring meetings. So this was our first time to have Saban and a Fisher. So you're going to ask them questions about that. And Saban's been out to a few other things, if I'm not mistaken. So once again, if it's your first time to ask these questions, so that's why I felt they wanted to get Jimbo's thoughts on NIL and what he said about Saban. So I think that's why he maybe got a few more questions than Saban did. But another thing, when you talk about, I thought was pretty funny. I thought Jimbo was one of the top 4 coaches here as far as entertaining the crowd. Somebody asked him why he, as the former, what he say is transcriber, transcriber, why do you talk so fast? And Jimbo goes, hey, I can get more questions in you. And then he did a real slow down and talked real slow. Do you want me to talk like this or talk like that? So I think Jimbo had the sports writers, so to speak, eating out of his hand. And of course, he does work on a farm. He does on a farm, so he knows how to get the cattle to come in and the horses.
The other interesting point, too, that I'll go back to your previous question, Alex, about another kind of storyline. We did get to ask a little bit about the recruiting class this year. The fact that, they come off the number 1 recruiting class of all time last year and heading into this 2023 class, at least last I checked, they're about number 61. Alex, you might be able to give me a little bit more updated number on that, but they only have, I believe, 5 recruits. And of course, Jimbo Fisher can't talk directly about individual recruits and how the timeline is going on there. But overall, I mean, he said he's fine with where they are. And mentioned, too, that last year was a little bit of a slow burn. They got a lot of those guys pretty late and a lot of times still shaken up. From when I asked later, got a little bit of clarification. They said he's looking at between 17 and 23 signees in this class, which would involve some roster movement. But he said things are still fluid and they'll have to see how things go in that regard. But it is interesting because I know there is a lot of the spotlight is on Texas A&M's recruiting efforts after what they were able to do last year. And it's left a lot of people kind of scratching their heads going, well, if it was so good then, what's happening now?
And let's be honest, that recruiting class is one of the reasons why a lot of people think A&M will have a great year. And even though they only returned 10 starters, they returned a lot of people who played, and they had these great freshmen. And now another story line, let's not forget, it's less than 24 hours old. A&M was the only school that only brought 2 athletes because Anais Smith got arrested. Now, Jimbo would not elaborate or answer more, said he got a statement out there. Somebody said, do you expect him back for the open or whatever? He didn't want to answer any of those questions. But let's remember, A&M also was the only school to have only 2 athletes here. And believe it or not, they didn't get a lot of love down here in the main room because a lot of media have left. When you go in the last day, a lot of times people, because of cheaper flights, have to get back. There was, I would say I was down at Damani Richardson's podium, and there was never more than, I want to say, 5 or 6 riders at a time there asking him questions. And 4 of us had previously been in a scrum before, because A&M does go ahead and talk to the media that cover them before they come into the main session. So you could say we're a little thin on numbers today. Maybe we need to sign some more recruits.
Yeah, that was something I was going to ask you guys about. What were some things that Damani and Layden Robinson really had to say? It looked like Layden Robinson tried to steal the show with his all-black suit look.
Yeah, both of them were dressed pretty sharp. He had all black. Damani was kind of all shades of navy. Layden Robinson said he was going after John Wick. I'm not up on my pop culture. I know it's like a kind of a secret agency. Jason
you need to
Bourne
watch
type
those
of
movies,
thing.
Travis.
Yeah. Okay. So he was mimicking John Wick. The key part to Damani Richardson's was his Gucci shoes that he paired with the all navy look on there. So that was going to looks. The one thing that actually stood out to me was one of the questions asked to Layden Robinson when we were in the local media huddle, and there is several returners on this offensive line. There's going to be some new guys. It's not necessarily a position that they have a question mark on, and it might actually be a position that's pretty strong for them. The question was asked, if you're 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and they need that 1 yard in a key play, who are they sending Devon A-Chain behind in that line? And he said, everybody, anybody. Anybody can take on that role. And so that's a confident stance for an offensive line that has some experience and will have some inexperience.
Well, that was a good answer by him. And I think somewhere in his conversation, he also alluded to the fact, maybe it's the fact that Devon A-Chain is so talented, he can make maybe a yard even if the guy doesn't get his block, because he said the best thing about A-Chain is he makes them look good even when they're not that good.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's the deal is you're going to hear a lot more from Layden Robinson, because hey, he was a darling today, and I don't want to belittle anything that Damani Richards said, because he was great. But Robinson came in and stole the show, because we talked to Damani a lot before. We knew what a good talker he was, and he would give us some answers. But Robinson was great.
To put a circle on this one little conversation, probably his best line was when asked about his suit. He said him and his mom and his family really took to dressing up. They like to wear a suit because, as he said, everybody likes a big boy in a suit.
Yeah, he was good, and I'm just glad his reference to pop culture. Travis didn't know what he was talking about, because when everybody else laughed, Cease, the old man, goes, "Who's he talking about?" So I'm glad Travis was lost with me on that.
Okay.
John Wick. It's
a
kind of bathroom deodorant.
It's a deodorant?
No, never mind.
Never mind. Okay.
Well,
but anyway, a lot of storylines at A&M today. So you got to remember, A&M, most people I feel will pick A&M 3rd in the SEC behind Alabama and Georgia. So this is a big year, and I think the players, and Jimbo alluded to that, they're ready at least verbally and mentally for the challenge. We'll see how it goes, because as we said, they already got off to a slip without Anaya Smith here, one of your senior leaders. So interesting start for A&M in the 2022 season, because a lot of people say the SEC media days kind of kick off college football.
Yeah, Cease, you bring up a good point. The preseason media poll will come out tomorrow morning. All you writers over in Atlanta filling out your ballots this afternoon. Where are you guys picking the Aggies, and why?
I had the A&M as 2nd in the West behind Alabama, so and 3rd overall behind Alabama and Georgia. Just like C said, with you can argue the talent that A&M might have this year, but with how dominant those two programs are going to be, you have to show me that prove to me that you can beat both of them or beat Alabama on a consistent basis to kind of get that nod.
Okay, I got to admit, we're roommates, so I cheated. I copied I looked over Travis' shoulders. I did the same thing. I had Alabama 1, Georgia 2, and A&M number 3. Now, what's interesting about me putting A&M number 3, I think anybody, this could be a breakthrough season for A&M. Why? Because they have so much depth and what have you, and so many talented players. I really put Georgia number 2 for the same reason. They had 15 or 17 players go to the NFL draft, and here we are all picking them number 2 really in the league. Why? Because Kirby Smart has done such a great job of recruiting. They got guys stepping in. Georgia has proven they're going to fill those empty spots and win a double-digit, have double-digit wins. A&M has yet to do that and get double-digit wins. So until they do that, at least I can't put them up at number 1 or 2. That's why this is a critical year, because A&M needs to do exactly what they're picked to do or better. They need to leapfrog Georgia. That's the only way. And Jimbo's talked about this. What does he call it? It's getting your spot at the table. Okay, they're at the first division table right now. Can they move up to 1 or 2? That's the challenge.
And another, when you look at the standings and you also look at A&M's season, their schedule this year, a conversation that we've had amongst ourselves and other media members here is South Carolina is a team to maybe look out for this year. They get Spencer Rattler in, Shane Beamer, second year over there. They have some talent. You look at some of the preseason All-American list, there's some Gamecocks on there. That's definitely a game to look out for. And I had them a little bit higher in I can't remember the exact number, but I'm higher in my poll this year than I probably would have thought I would have.
Yeah, once again, I guess I cheated off of Travis. I have South Carolina higher than other people did for the same reason. And I just like what Beamer's done in 1 year. He way over exceeded expectations. And give you a preview. Got to read the Eagle tomorrow. We have a lot of good stuff. And we forgot to mention about Zach Calzada. Both Jimbo talked about him. Travis asked Carson about him. So that's a little bit of teaser. Read the Eagle tomorrow. Get something about that. But when you're getting back to the predictions of, I think I'm going to put in my story, A&M has a manageable schedule. I don't think it's an easy schedule because South Carolina, that could be a kind of victory that makes their season. Gone to Auburn, Harsin could be maybe trying to save his job when A&M goes down to Auburn. They have to go to Alabama. I think even the Miami game is scary early in the year because that's another Nick Saban clone. Cristobal, a lot of people have him pegged to be the next Alabama coach if Nick Saban retires in the year 3000. So, I think once again, A&M has a manageable schedule, but got to be careful.
Well, guys, before we let you go, any final thoughts from SEC Media Days?
I'm really kind of disappointed that you haven't asked us about food yet. I mean, it's kind of your bit.
I mean, it sounds like you guys have just been riding to the wee hours of the night, so I hope that you've eaten some food. Right. Yeah, any good meals over in Atlanta?
They've done a really good job of feeding us here and having some good receptions and things like that. So we have not gone want on food. That is for sure.
Yeah, we haven't put a meal on the company yet. As far as when we're here, we worked every day. Went to the media receptions, and it's been very, to me, kind of relaxing. I know that's a stupid word to use since I'm writing like 5-6 hours a day. When you look at stuff, whatever. But football's here. I mean, we knew exactly what we're doing each day. Don't want to say it like a coach. Now, for some reason, we got a little late start today because the engineer back home was a little bit, he wasn't up to his full all SEC potential, but we know he's going to be better next time.
To answer the question, I think probably I'd have to say the best meal was the $8 chicken fingers I got at the the Atlanta United game. I mean, when do you go to a sporting event, professional sporting event, and get a meal and a drink for $8? That's crazy.
I've heard the concessions over at Mercedes-Benz Stadium are legit. Hey, and I gotta say, we were playing Where's Waldo, Cease in a Hawaiian shirt edition from home, and we spotted him every single day on SEC Network. So good job, Cease.
I got to give my eldest daughter, Cassie, bought this for me from her on her honeymoon in Hawaii and brought it back for the old man.
Well, and for those just listening on the podcast, this is a great Hawaiian shirt with some Technicolor flowers on it and Mickey Mouse heads everywhere. So it is fantastic.
I'm goofy, but here's Mickey Mouse.
All right, I think that's going to do it for this episode of the My Aggie Nation podcast. Be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage from SEC Media Days in Atlanta. For Robert Sesson and Travis Brown, I'm Alex Miller. We'll see you next time on the My Aggie Nation podcast.